Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for giving us your time today. My name is Linnea Akesson, and I will be presenting our rationale for our buy recommendation of Apogee Enterprises with my teammate, Jonah Berry. Unfortunately, our third team member, Michael Meader, is unable to be with us today because of a family emergency. Jonah will present his material on his behalf, and we will answer any related questions at the end to the best of our abilities. To start off, there are four key drivers of our buy recommendation. Apogee has a well-positioned product portfolio with a wide range of customers. This diversification allows them to be better positioned to weather any future uncertainty regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as any economic downturns. Apogee also has good financial solvency with a current ratio of 1.6 times. This monetary cushion also alleviates some uncertainty with regard to COVID. Our DCF analysis also indicated that Apogee is currently slightly underpriced. Jonah will go into that analysis in more depth later on. Finally, the consumer, political, and social environment is trending towards sustainability, and energy efficient construction is one piece of that. Apogee offers products that can be used towards LEED certification and overall increased energy efficiency. They are poised to take advantage of those tailwinds as they arrive. So a little business overview of Apogee. Apogee is a small cap company based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and works with customers throughout the United States, Canada, and Brazil. Apogee provides their customers with customized window and framing solutions for non-residential buildings. The company is made up of several subsidiaries, enabling them to offer their customers support with all parts of the construction process. One of their most notable projects was working on the One World Trade Center in New York City, which is currently the largest building in the United States. The company has four segments, as you can see in that chart on the left there. The largest being architectural framing systems, representing 50% of the revenues, then architectural glass, architectural services, and the smallest portion of the revenues is brought by large-scale optical. Large-scale optical has the highest operating margin within their segments with 25.8% operating margin. Apogee also recently appointed Ty R. Silverhorn as their new CEO to replace Joseph Puiches. Overall, the industry is very fragmented and consists of mainly small and medium-sized companies with a handful of larger players. The key drivers in the non-residential construction industry are remote work, the relative strength of the US dollar, new business growth, as well as the increase in energy-efficient construction, as I mentioned earlier. Remote work is the most significant headwind facing the industry as companies begin to rethink their need for traditional brick-and-mortar office spaces after the virtual work during the pandemic. While there may be a decrease in office building contracts, Apogee's diverse product portfolio allows them to fill that loss with different contracts with retail stores. The strength of the US dollar relative to foreign currencies is hard to predict, but does influence the customer demand for work done by foreign companies. The first positive driver is new business growth. And as you can see in the two graphs to the right, there's been an increase in business applications in 2020. There was a similar spike in 2012, which was followed by a period of increased spending in the non-residential construction industry, as seen in the bottom chart. Finally, the increased demand for LEED certified and energy efficient buildings will increase, in particular with the Biden administration's emphasis on working towards cleaner energy solutions to combat climate change. We think this industry is moderately attractive. The threat of new entrants in the industry is low, given the capital required to purchase necessary machinery as well as base materials for projects. Suppliers have a moderate amount of power given the limited nature of Apogee's main source materials, including aluminum as well as glass. Customers have high power as they can use a different contracting company and shop around to find a good fit for their project. There's a moderate threat of substitute products as most windows generally function and appear similar. The competition in the industry is high given its fragmented nature and consistent vying for market share. Now I will pass it over to Jonah to walk through our valuation.
Thanks. So our DCF analysis yielded a target price of $39.09, representing a 9% upside. This forecast was based off a WACC of 5.343 and a terminal growth rate of 3%. These were both based off of current trends as well as forecasted trends. Apogee has a healthy above average ROE as well as solid growth performance that allow for this forecast. The overall financial health of Apogee is strong. Even in the midst of a global pandemic, Apogee was able to stay financially healthy by cutting costs, increasing efficiency, and retaining the contracts they already had started or planned. Apogee has also had several initiatives to stay liquid with the given uncertainty. Next, we'll move into some investment risks. First off, we see the largest investment risk as being industry factors. Apogee's largest three segments, architectural framing systems, architectural glass, and architectural services, are cyclically reliant on the North American economic conditions, which expose them to a lot of risk in terms of the success of the US economy. In terms of COVID-19, Apogee, the main thing with this is the liquidity of Apogee's customers, and so far they've been able to weather the risk, though the future is uncertain with that. Next, the work environment is shifting towards a work from home as being the number one way to do it. And so that could also lead to some uncertainty going forward. And then next, supplier reliance and foreign currency coincide as they rely on their suppliers for raw materials. And a lot of those are international. And since they're relying on international suppliers, they are exposed to foreign currency risk. So that could be a risk going forward. And we don't see the new CEO being a big risk, but that is something to consider. And then in terms of ESG here, Apogee has taken several initiatives to reduce their energy and waste consumptions. And then for social and governance, they kind of go together. The big risks here, or the big upsides here, are their diversity within their board and how their long-term compensation are aligned with the interests of their shareholders. Apogee has embodied diversity within their board with a composition of 3 of 10 female directors and 2 of 10 ethnically diverse directors. With that, in 2018, Apogee was recognized on the honor roll for the 2018 Minnesota Census of Women in Corporate Leadership for having over 20% diversity on their executive ranks. As you can see on the graph on the right, Apogee's board is composed mainly of independent directors, which is a huge upside. We believe Apogee is well positioned and has great upside moving forward. Thank you for your time today. We would now like to open it up for questions.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Jake Seltz. Good presentation. Commend you. I know it's not easy when you have a last minute change of events and have to kind of step up. So I'm glad you're able to take on that challenge.
Definitely appreciate that.
Yeah. So I guess my first question that I've been asking, you've kind of addressed some of the maybe changes in the structural drivers as a result of the pandemic. So I just wanted to maybe ask a little bit more on the valuation, and maybe you can just talk a little bit more about the methodology you guys are using within your DCF or in relative valuations. I'm just kind of curious of how you're arriving at your price target.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. This is one of Michael's, so I'm trying to answer this the best I can here. He worked a lot on that. Yeah, we kind of use their financial ratios to come up with a set of assumptions that we were able to use for this DCF analysis here, and then with those assumptions,
considering, sorry to cut you off, Jonah.
No, go for it.
We're also considering that within the pandemic, they had to increase efficiency within their supply chain, as well as when they're producing and creating these buildings. So I think going forward, as they do see the economy coming back, they will be also experiencing increased margins given the increased efficiency within their supply chain. So that was a big part of the assumptions that Michael was using when he was doing the DCF valuation.
Was that, were you using strictly DCF, or were you using multiple analysis as well, or?
We use both.
Yeah, so we did a DCF as well as a Monte Carlo simulation.
Okay.
All the simulations yielded pretty similar results in terms of price. Those were pretty consistent. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think you guys did a really good job on the Porter's 5 forces. I don't know if you can go to that slide, but maybe walk me through your analysis on the Porter's 5 forces and then how, I mean, when I look at new entrants, threat of people coming in is low, so competition can enter. The customers have high purchasing power, high risk of moderate risk of I mean, when I look at your Porter's 5 forces and link it to your buy rating, right? Because it makes me feel like this is maybe a business that has low barriers to entry and high customer power.
Well, I would just say that the industry seems moderately attractive given the competition, but the competition is also really scattered. So like within an area, Apogee can take an advantage of specific geographic locations. Like I said, they are located in the United States, Canada, as well as Brazil, but that poses a very small percentage of their actual construction. So going forwards, if they kind of do have an advantage in that sense that they aren't spread out geographically, because a lot of the larger companies are foreign. So like one of the biggest competitors they have is Skånska AB, which is a Swedish company located in Stockholm. And with that, they kind of have an advantage over them with knowing the geographic location, knowing potential consumers, and being able to approach them at a more knowledgeable level, I guess you could say. I don't know if that answers your question. But.
Oh, no, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would like to ask a question about the capital redeployment or deployment of cash flow. So if you could advise management, what would you tell them about your preferences for the deployment of capital?
I would say if I were on the management team, I would want to focus on expanding the large-scale obstacle section. So that represents 5%, but it does give them the largest operating margins. So that would be an easy way to increase their bottom line profitability very quickly. It is a small market, but I think they could potentially be like garner market share there or make some acquisitions in that segment, because they do have a pretty strong acquisition strategy. They are pretty aggressive in that sense.
Okay. And another question I have is with regard to the CEO. I know he came from 3M, but 3M's a pretty big place, very diversified. So what was his expertise there, and what does he bring to the party here?
Yeah, one second. So from my understanding, he was originally the Senior Vice President of Transformation, Technology, and Services. So personally, I'm not 100% sure what that does entail, but I would assume he does have a good understanding of the operational side of the business and can give them some support there. And also working at a company like 3M probably gives you a lot of broader experience, and bringing that to a smaller company like Apogee could definitely make the culture a lot more focused on expanding and take some of those benefits that working at 3M would give him.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, it's Carrie. It's Carrie Robinson from Macquarie. I have a follow-up question on the slide that you have up right now. Can you talk a little bit about the growth profile of each of the 4 business segments? Because I see that the architectural framing business looks like it's 50% of their revenue stream, but it's a much smaller portion of their overall operating margin. And I'm just curious, like, what kind of assumptions do you think is appropriate for the growth rates of those 4 business segments?
Jonah, do you want to take this one with regards to the valuation?
Yeah. We just kind of see the large scale optical as being the most profitable, and that's because that is the smallest one. But there are a lot of risks with that, being that it's affected greatly by COVID. Their customers have shrank a lot, and they're really exposed to that sort of downside. Yeah.
I would with the architectural framing systems, historically their expansion has been inorganic growth. I can't say that. So with acquisitions, so going forward, they could probably acquire some more companies in that field to gain more market share. But during the meeting with the CEO, or not the CEO, but like their investor relations guy, he didn't really give much insight on if they would be having any acquisitions in the future. So we did have a consistent lower growth rate within architectural framing systems.
Did you guys look at the proxy at all? I'm curious how management is compensated. I'm sure they have a salary, but they also end up getting a bonus potentially at the end of the year. And what drives that bonus? Is it profitability? Is it sales growth? Is it free cash flow generation?
So what I noticed was that it was pretty split between short-term and long-term goals. In addition, 61% was performance-based. I don't remember off the top of my head, like specifically what drove that performance-based portion, but there were also no multi-year contracts or guarantees, which was definitely a positive. But anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's definitely good to see too that their incentives are really aligned with the interests of the shareholders. So in this past year, it was an economic downturn, so no incentive compensation or awards were paid out to executives. So you can see that, and that was because they were unable to meet the performance requirements. So
60 seconds left.
All right, I'll throw in one more. So as analysts, we, besides talking to management and Wall Street analysts, we typically look at some outside sources to come up to support our investment thesis. So can you talk about some of the non-management or non-Wall Street sources you used in your analysis and how that was helpful?
Yeah, so I find that looking at Glassdoor is a good way to see how the employees who are working at the company are actually enjoying their time there, and also gives a little bit insight to the CEO. Unfortunately, given that they just switched CEO, that isn't necessarily as relevant with Apogee. But other than that, like obviously, like you look at the 10K, the 10Q, the proxy. Jonah, any other?
Yeah, looking at the company website as well, and looking in terms of their ESG, looking at the initiatives that they're taking, and looking forward what their what their motives are, and to
Okay,
really
that's the time. That's the time. Thanks, guys. Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Good job.